I'm Allegra.
I'm Emily.
Welcome to the very first episode of Stormcrows TV, the channel where two lit chicks talk about all things writing and reading. Mostly.
Among other things. We're pretty tangential.
Spoiler alert, we're going to be really bad at staying on this script, but we're going to try. We promise.
Wait. There's a script.
Sort of. We might have made a sort of outline. You know, kind of like our outline books.
As pointed out, this is our first episode, so we are trying to find our rhythm. Any constructive feedback is definitely most welcome. But right now, this is what we're going to try.
We hope to make you laugh or not, rage either way. But to that end, we are going to be talking about our top 5 favorite novels. We took Twitter polls, and apparently the Twitter people would like us to talk about just books. So we're just going to talk about books. Very specifically,
our top 5. So go ahead, you start.
What? No, I don't. Fine. Okay. I'm immediately cheating because I don't feel that I can only do 5 books.
Well, no, that's what we agreed to do.
You already agreed to this list because remember 5 minutes ago we said we had an outline. You saw the outline.
Okay. I don't want to admit that I didn't read the outline. Because I trusted you. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, she's gonna...
mistake.
And you should know, but I am a teacher. I'm cheating. Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're not.
Not at all. Anyway, my top 5 is starting out with A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin because
that is cheating. But go ahead. Tell us why.
Because otherwise I would just be listing out the 4 A Song of Ice and Fire novels that are out. But anyway, I love the world building. I love his point of view. I adore Martin's ability to go deep point of view and to have his style. You can tell Martin is writing it, but each character is written very differently. And I adore the way he does that.
That is true. I'm kind of envious of how well he does that. It's a very good study for a growing writer. And we're all growing. So, if you haven't read it, I agree with you. I think they should.
And if you then read his Song of Ice and Fire novels, and then you contrast it with the Targaryen history he did, Fire and Blood, which is written as being a framework of Maester of the Citadel writing a history, that is written completely differently too. And the Maester almost becomes the character that's telling you the story. And I love the play on point of view. The way he did that was really cool to me. I love that. But anyway.
He certainly had enough time to get it right.
Yeah, he is good at taking his time, right? Yeah.
And if you're not, if you're going to do something, do it well. So, I'm not judging him. I know there's a lot of people who are like, man, he's never going to get this out in time. But, if this is how you do, this is how you do. Yeah, good for you for wanting to get it right. Yeah. Anyway, so my number 1 is, I would go with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams.
Instead of the whole series, because now she's just showing me up. I get it.
Well, no, I do like the series, but again, if I had to pick a favorite, which I thought was the point, I love the first one, and I think that really goes back to, it reminds me so much of Monty Python. I grew up on Monty Python. That was the show I sat down with my dad and we watched it, and it always made me laugh. And it's not always the most intelligent humor.
Yeah.
But that was the point. It was intelligent in that it really just didn't want you to take things seriously. And Hitchhiker's Guide was the first book I read that just was so ridiculous and so inane, and it was amazingly funny. I never laughed so hard in a novel. And so the reason I picked the first one is because it really was that magical feeling of, I didn't know a book could be this funny. And he's like the gateway, right? So you read Douglas Adams and you're like, I want more of that. And it leads you into Pratchett, and Pratchett leads you into Gaiman. And it's the gateway author, I feel. At least it was for me.
No, it's the same for me. We found it in high school and during a sci-fi class, and then proceeded to torture our poor teacher who did not like Douglas Adams at all. And so that became every book report that we did.
I don't I can't wrap my head around that because as a teacher today, I would just be glad you're reading. That's an anomaly. Like, you don't get many kids who read. When I have a kid who comes up and says, "Oh, miss, I read Harry Potter," I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you read a chapter book. I'm so proud of you." So I just, if a kid came up and said, "I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, let me quote you some Vogon poetry," I would cry.
Oh yeah, we did Vogon poetry. We actually tried to write something as terrible as Vogon poetry as a tribute. Discussing of jeweled scuttling crabs and the whale who's falling from the sky. Like, my friend could do that entire passage by heart.
Your friend sounds like a friend worth having.
Awesome.
And like I said, I love it because it led me to Pratchett and Gaiman.
Oh yeah. Which is what leads me into my second one, which is Pratchett and Gaiman's Good Omens. Like you said, like it makes you laugh. It makes the apocalypse seem not so bad after all. Like,
I mean, but is it really?
I mean, in the year of our Lord 2019.
Yeah.
So we're all just letting her wait.
Aside from that, like, what did you love about Good Omens? What makes it stand out?
I love that they took something as big and scary as the apocalypse and went, let's make this fun. And I love the kids, them. Like, Adam and his friends, and they bond together. And yeah, okay, Adam ends up being the Antichrist, but his friends are like, it's cool, we love you anyway.
See, and I felt the opposite. And I think this says a lot about us. And what's scary is I'm the educator. And that, like, I really couldn't stand the kid.
Really?
I could have just read straight demon and angel hijinks. Like, I didn't need any more. It's like the kid was like, ugh, kid. But like I loved just the relationship that shouldn't have ever been possible.
Crowley and Aziraphale are amazing, and David Tennant and Michael
Sheen.
They are Crowley and Aziraphale now.
I had a big crush on Michael Sheen, so I mean, just off the top of my head, I could tell you all his movies. But yeah, I mean, that was perfect casting. That was dream casting. And I can't imagine anyone else in that role.
No. Like, when they announced that casting, it was like, you got who you needed to get. Yep.
When you love something and you hear it's being made into a movie or a TV show, there's always that, like, fear. Oh my gosh, what if they don't do it right? And yeah, as soon as we found out, like, oh, it's Tennant and it's Shane, it's like, oh, they're gonna be all right.
Okay, and speaking of things that have had bad adaptations into movies before, what's your second favorite novel?
Hey, Kenneth Branagh did not do a terrible Frankenstein.
No, he didn't, but there have been others.
Mel Brooks didn't do a terrible Frankenstein. I'm kidding. So I have chosen Frankenstein, or the modern day Prometheus if you want to be pretentious. And because I don't want to be pretentious, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay.
So what is your... I'm kidding. So
do you want me to poke you to be pretentious? I can totally poke you to be pretentious.
I do think it's fair. But, just a warning. I'm just the biggest Mary Shelley fan. I think in terms of when she grew up, she was pretty metal. Her mom was this famous feminist in a time when that wasn't cool. And her dad was just this big literary giant. And, you can't imagine the pressure. She's metal as hell. Like, she had sex on her mother's grave. She kept human organs on her desk of her dead husband. And it's like, who is this even? And then you just throw into the mix that here's this woman who lives in a time of literary giants. I mean, this is when you get all those classic novels coming out that they force you to read in high school. And she managed to have one of the most recognized titles of that age. I mean, if you haven't read Frankenstein, you've heard of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal, and it's one of the first stories I remember reading that played with the protagonist as the villain. And, you go in, you've seen the movies, you've heard the tropes, and it's like, okay, the monster is, the creation. it turns out that the real monster is Victor. And
Yeah, Victor's a peach.
and it's not because he's just inherently evil, and that was also fun too. Victor was just misguided. He was ignorant. For as smart as he was extremely ignorant about what to do with life once it's been created. He was so arrogant, like, I can be God. And then you create man, and you don't know what to do with it.
Not at all a parable for our times.
I mean, and it's like the reverse genocide. And yet, the monster himself was extremely intriguing. Like, he taught himself to read and write, and very intelligent. But he really just wanted the love of his dad, essentially. Sorry, that got really pretentious. You're gonna have to go ahead and, cut me off.
No, I'm gonna let you be a lit teacher for a minute, so I don't have to talk.
No, I'm done, and I think I've said basically what I wanted to say about it. So, you take it away, Allegra.
Okay. I guess that moves into my third one. From her high lit to my preferred high fantasy, I'm going to do The Lies of Locke Lamora, which by Scott Lynch, which has become like kind of a pretty, like, it was a pretty big hit in the fantasy community. I know Em hasn't read it, so I'm going to tell her real quick. It is basically Ocean's 11 set in a high fantasy setting, but it is amazing in what it does and how the story is told. It's the modern story, or the current storyline, is that it's this group of the gentleman bastards, that's what they call themselves, and they're this group of con artists, and they're trying to pull off a con, and it's getting increasingly hard, and all sorts of stuff happens, and magic gets involved, and terrible things are happening to them. But at the same time, you're also getting a story that's how the group came to be. So you're also getting a timeline story that's like when Locke, the main character, was a little kid. And so you're constantly switching between these two timelines. And how Scott Lynch managed to pull both of those stories together is really cool. And
I'm not going to lie, as you're describing this, I'm totally imagining Brad Pitt and George Clooney and Matt Damon trying to pull this off.
It would work, yeah. Locke is supposed to be super, like, have a face that nobody can remember. So I don't know that George Clooney quite fits, but
Matt Damon, I mean, he's already played that character, if you think about it, like Dogma.
Yeah. I really love Locke Lamora. I love his friends, and I love the world that they're in, but I really do admire how Scott Lynch put that story together. Really, it's just a fun adventure with really interesting, really cool world building, because it's like post-apocalyptic medieval, almost, in a way. It's set in this world that's like Venice, but high fantasy, and their entire planet was once inhabited by some other ancient elder race of beings that left all this really cool, high-tech, possibly magic stuff. But the humans are just kind of using and living among the ruins, but they don't really know what they're living among. So you have this really, like, this continuing note of eldritch possibilities in the background. Like, what the hell used to live here? Maybe they should consider that at some point. Nah, it's fine. We're just going to go about our daily lives. I don't really like the sequels, but the first one I do love.
I will have to read it. Okay, so I've decided, because you cheated, I'm going to cheat. I originally had a specific one picked for this one.
She's lying. It was always all of them. We both got one cheat.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
I would never lie to any of you. Don't trust Allegra. But, okay, so I've decided, because I followed the rules, to pick one of the books, but now I'm just going to do the whole series. So
one of us always tells the truth, and one of us always lies.
That's not true.
Not. Is it? We don't know.
Shush, I'm talking.
Are you? Are you? About the Mallory novel?
You want to do this list on your... I can stop.
Go ahead. No, it's fine.
Are you sure? Like, I don't want to step on your toes.
No, it's fine. You've already stepped on
As she said, because she actually did read the outline, I'm going to go with the Mallory novels, and this really dipped into the genre that we actually write. So I stumbled on romance way too young, but I think that's true for a lot of people. But when I found romance, yeah, I wasn't in it for like the intellectual storytelling, because that's not what it typically is. It's like random girl A meets random dude B equals happily ever after with some sex sort of mixed in there, right? And they tend to be interchangeable cookie cutter characters.
Don't forget, they are all tempestuous. Never forget.
Oh, yes. And the female, back in the day when they used to put synopses on the back of the books instead of Newsweek reviews, the girl's always tempestuous, and they always have, like, multi-syllable names. Like Vanessa, or, Patricia, or Cassandra.
It's always 3 syllables, like.
Yeah, it's never like Sandra, Sarah. I don't feel like this is true for contemporary romance or any of the modern ones coming out. But like back in the day, like it was always a tempestuous multi-syllable protagonist who is female. And the dude was always like Conan the Barbarian sort of names. There's like strong names, and he's like so strong, and his chest
names you could
so
bark,
massive.
like.
Yeah, and it was always Fabio. There was always Fabio on the cover. And I'm not judging. It could have been worse, I guess. He's not my taste.
But I can see why they found him attractive. I get the gist.
I
remember being little and just the Walmart shelves being full of Fabio covers.
I mean, he branded himself well. I'll give him that. But okay, so I found these romance novels. They weren't great, and I'd always been a reader, so it's like it was fun to find books I didn't have to really think about. But what I like about the Mallory series, and the second book, A Tender Rebel in particular, is it was the first romance series that taught me that romance didn't have to suck, right? So she's very good with characterization. I love the Mallory brothers. I love Anthony Mallory. He is my favorite of all of the Mallory brothers. And I love the extended family. There are very few characters that she writes that I just hate. And the ones that I do hate, you're supposed to hate. And she's really good at that. She's really good at consistent characterization with humor. Like, I laugh reading those books. And the dynamic between the brothers is very believable. Like, you believe they are brothers. They treat each other like brothers. And the romances are fairly balanced. Like, no one really treats their wife or their significant other in a way that is like, well, you're beneath me. Even though this is Regency historical fiction, there's genuine love between the characters, and the guys respect their wives. And it's healthy relationships. Things that's like when you're a kid and you stumble on these, it's like, oh wow, that's what I want in a relationship. And so
I never understood some of those older ones. I remember like getting a hold of my mom's, or some of the ones like from the probably 90s-ish. And God help you if you get one of the 80s ones.
Oh God.
Or the 70s. Like, just give up. But like, the guys were so mean. Like, why would you put up with him? And of course, I was always reading historical ones, and I was always like, why don't you just poison the hero and marry his much cooler brother? I don't understand.
Yeah, because there's always a character that was nicer.
Yeah.
And they treated the female like a human, and then you had the male protagonist who was, I'm a dick because that's sexy. And it's like, it's to a point. Like, you can be a type A alpha male, but like, it's not sexy to treat the woman like she's just your toy.
Or just like she's a doormat. Like, I remember like so many of those. I just came up with vibrant fan fictions in my head about the hero murdering the heroine murdering the hero. and just running away with someone else, or I couldn't understand why you would stay in this relationship.
Well, and then, like, just on the opposite end of that, it's like sometimes the hero was fine, but the female protagonist was just written so unbelievably dumb.
Yeah, that too.
It's like the hero was almost just a saint for putting up with it. And it's like, you can have two fairly balanced people who can make a healthy relationship. That is possible.
No, and that's too much fantasy.
You do find that with Johanna Lindsey, and don't get me wrong, she can be very cookie cutter. She can be very formulaic. And aside from the Mallory novel, she does have her tempestuous females. And even in some of the Mallory novels, the females are quite tempestuous. But they're not
like saying tempestuous, and we apologize.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because it's on every cover from like 85 to like 99.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so it's like I love the Mallory novels because of the characterization.
Cat Valente, The Orphan's Tales is my number 4.
Oh.
The Orphan's Tales in the Night Garden. It's again my fondness for books that have narrative tricks to them. It's kind of told like 1001 Arabian Nights, but it's a story within a story within a story. So the original framework, the outside frame, is this little boy in a garden of a palace, mysterious palace, some fantasy land, meets this little girl, and she's got stories written all over her. And so she starts telling him the stories. And then each story has another story inside it, which then breaks down to another story. And like you almost have to keep a mind map of all the stories that you're going into the book and coming out of the book.
That sounds like an actual good story to bring into the classroom, to be honest.
You might really have fun with it because, yeah, the trick to that and the narrative devices, and she has beautiful prose. Like, it's almost like reading poetry. It's gorgeously written.
That's my bread and butter. I love flowy.
I love people who can write beautiful prose like that. I don't write it, and then, of course, right now we're both writing in romance, which you can't really go too purpley. Like, you have to be really careful. And
yes, I've learned.
And specifically, we're writing biker romance, so our characters wouldn't talk like that to start with. Like, if we were reading medieval romance, I think we would have a little more leeway. But
and that was my greatest struggle, though, because, like, I do love stories that are very flowy, and that's kind of what I grew up. I think I'll definitely check this book out.
I would recommend it. And there's a sequel 2 or 3, I think. But we'll probably put links to these down in the bottom. So you can find all the ones that we're talking about. What is your number 4?
Well, I'm gonna stick kind of with romance, but not within like the romance genre per se. Everyone's heard of this book, even if they don't know it's a book, and it's The Princess Bride by William Goldman, not by S. Morgenstern, as a younger me once believed. Yeah. I just love this book. Speaking of like amazingly lyrical prose, where I can't even like form words to fully express how much I love this book. Now, I did see the movie before I saw the book, and I was one of those people who was like, "There's a book," and I immediately ran to find it. And this was before, Amazon, right? So like I had to like search. And I ran to so many bookstores and like, oh man, we don't have that anymore. I think I wound up at a bookstore like an hour away just to find it. And so I bought it. I read it in a day. Like, that's how much I just could not put it down. And I'm not saying I'm a quick reader. I'm saying I didn't sleep. And so I just loved it. And, you have, and I think it's fair that these camps of like, the book is always better than the movie people. And they tend to be right. But I think with The Princess Bride, it's one of the few instances where the movie does the book justice. And I think it's because William Goldman actually wrote the screenplay. Now, we know that doesn't always translate to good movie. The movie is perfect. It's the perfect adaptation. Obviously, it couldn't have everything That's just, to be expected. So really, if you look at the book as like a DVD extra, and you're like,
Yeah.
you get more out of it, and you do see the lyrical side of it, and their thoughts, and more detail. I will say, like, the version I got had like a little snippet from what would have, I guess, been a sequel called Buttercup's Baby.
Oh yeah, it was the intentionally terrible sequel that was hysterically like.
Yeah, I will say, when I read that at that age, I was so upset.
Oh, I know.
Because, I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, because I really do legitimately want you guys to go read it, but I just remember reading it and throwing it. And going, that's some bull. I can't believe you did that to me. If you want to know what that is, you need to go buy the book. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Go buy it.
Yeah, I think that was the first time I realized that other authors understood the whole curse of like horrible sequels.
No, but like I was a moron. I legitimately was like, this is real. This is canon. This is how could he do that? Because I mean, I was in high school. We all think we're smart in high school. Like, ooh, I scored really high in the essay. No, you're dumb in high school. I was dumb, and so I'm just like, I was so mad. Now I can look back and be like, oh, it's satire, but like.
Well, we were also in the grips of the fandom wars when, like, the Harry Potter fandom wars, and
we'll get to that in a little while, won't we? Yeah.
My friends and I personally, like, we were in the middle of the 5 other people will ever understand this reference, but L.J. Smith's Night World books, and a giant, like, tussle over the fact that the next Night World book had not come out for like 5 years, and we were all like in the gradual acceptance of there was never going to be the rest of the sequel.
I'm not going to lie to you, Allegra. Like, you're painting a very dystopian literary picture of the past.
I went to a very strange high school. I will reiterate. Someday, like one of these episodes, we can talk about Allegra's weirdo high school experience that is not up is down and down is up. Like, it was high school wonderland, for various reasons. But anyway, the whole bad sequel thing then leads me into my 5th book, which is The Secret Country by Pamela Dean. Not that her sequels are bad at all, but that there weren't any. That you get the Secret Country trilogy, then there's one sort of maybe tie-in book, and then nothing, and you had this whole world that could have been amazing. I think even the Secret Country trilogy itself may be out of print again. It never had a big run. You probably can find it secondhand on Amazon, or maybe
We'll find out if it's still, like, if we can find it on Amazon, because we are going to try and put the links in the description. So if it is available, we'll find it and make it accessible.
Yeah, I will say last time I checked, which was probably 2 years ago when I lost one of my copies, it was out of print again. But who knows? Miracles happen. But anyway, so The Secret Country by Pamela Dean is this. It's one of the genre of kids playing a game that turns real. And it was marketed kind of as teen, young adult, but it's not. There's some very mature themes if you're reading between the lines that she had to cut out because the publisher wanted to hit that market instead of making an adult book that happened to have children as characters. So,
I think that's unfair, but we can get to that in another episode. Yeah. That's an hour.
Again, perils of the publishing industry. But anyway, part of it is that Pamela Dean loved medieval and classic, like, poetry and plays, and so these kids are kids, but they've been left alone with the running feral with their parents having giant stacks of literature and not a lot of TV. So these kids are kind of left alone, and every summer they just run wild, kind of like my cousins and I did, honestly, at my grandparents' farm. And they build these elaborate games. Okay, you're right. A little bit like my cousins and I did. But theirs get really elaborate. And my cousins also would pull in comic books into our games. And these kids are just using Shakespeare and classic poetry and like classic lit. And they've created this game, and they act out the parts. And then the setup is that then the game turns real, and they end up in that world that they thought they created. And they've got to survive this medieval court that they made based on all of their crazy Shakespeare ideas. So the court is literally just murder and intrigue and stabbing. And it's like throwing.
So it sounds like our kind of world. I mean,
yeah, like it's like throwing small children into a slightly Narnia-fied Westeros. Like someone's trying to kill the king. They know someone's trying to kill the king. They're trying to save the king. It doesn't work. Now they have to go to war. And oops, we're like 11, and now we've got to lead a war.
Yeah, that makes sense, though. I mean, that sounds real cool. That's another novel I'm going to have to really look for, because I think my kids would enjoy that. My student kids, just to be clear.
You'll want to read it before the students do, because, like I said, it does, part of the thing is the secret country is sort of like Fantasia, so they actually tend to quote the these and thous. Like, there's quotes of Shakespeare that comes out of characters' mouths.
I think by the time they get to me, though, they've had some exposure to William Shakespeare.
See, I have no idea when normal children find Shakespeare. My best friend and I were doing Midsummer Night's Dream in the backyard when we were in 7th grade. So it's
like, if you're me, you found Much Ado About Nothing when you were like 10, and then 12th Night, and
I remember finding the Much Ado About Nothing movie on like HBO when I was like 12 or 11, somewhere there.
The one with Denzel?
Yeah, and then just like all the world stopped. Yeah, and then I realized I was in love with Denzel Washington.
Well, I mean, there comes a time in every young person's life when they realize they're in love with Denzel Washington.
Right? Like, I don't know. Like, puberty hit me from above, and I was like, and now my Lord and Savior Denzel Washington is here. I don't...
Do you have a moment to talk about our Lord and Savior Denzel?
Like, seriously.
No, and I loved Emma Thompson. Like, yes. she rocks that kind of role. Like, I think that's when I realized I wanted to be her. Like, she was my hero, aside from Wednesday Addams, and Morticia. Like, I wanted to be her. She was just the ideal. Speaking of Emma Thompson.
Oh, good segue into your fifth novel.
No, we did not plan this segue. It just works. So my fifth and last book on my top 5 list is part of a series, but I'm going to specifically pick one out because I've already had my cheat. This is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which the movie adaptation is the first time we saw Emma Thompson as Professor Trelawney. So my introduction to the Harry Potter series was kind of weird because it had been out for a bit. I was in 7th grade, and my friends would not shut up about it. And I didn't want to read it because I'm like, I don't want to read a book about a boy wizard. Are you kidding? There's like other books out there that interest me a lot more. They're like, no, you have to read this, Emily. You have to read it. And I'm like, you know what? I'll borrow the book so you can shut up. Because it wasn't big. It wasn't a huge book. It wasn't going to take me long to get through. And, I mean, I fell in love at first chapter. I loved the Sorcerer's Stone. Chamber of Secrets, I didn't hate. It wasn't my favorite of the first 3. But Prisoner of Azkaban, I mean, I will go down swinging anyone who insults Remus Lupin or Sirius Black. Like, the whole concept of the Marauders is, I think, what really informed how I write my male characters. I think my really, alpha males are always based on what I imagined Sirius Black was back in his Hogwarts days. And even, like, post-Hogwarts. Like, Sirius Black was my favorite character. And I love kind of like the red herring, where it's like you think he's definitely the one who betrayed... Spoilers, by the way. You think he's the one who betrayed James and Lily and led to their death, and you really believe it. But because you've read the first book, you know that she's going to kind of twist it on you. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, I think through every book you're like, it was Snape. But
right, like always. Snape was always the answer. It was always going to be Snape. Right?
It was always Snape, and then it finally was Snape, but then it was like, maybe, it's not quite as, clear cut. Either way. But Lupin I always loved, and I love him in a different way. Like, he's softer than Sirius. Still just very funny, very reliable. And a werewolf, which you can't beat. And
Let's not get into the whole werewolf mythology within her.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that, say what you will about J.K. Rowling, she does name her characters a lot like a Sailor Moon sort of thing. Like, Remus Lupin, I didn't see that wolf thing coming.
Well, it was either he was a wolf or he founded Rome. I mean...
Yeah, one or the other. And then Sirius Black, no way he's a black dog. I mean, yeah, the naming conventions were spoilers in and of themselves, but I mean, she at least kind of covered it up in that, like, everyone in the Black family was named after some star or constellation.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, it's a good argument for being, like, you can pick your animagus. Like, Sirius just really embraced his name, which is really kind of counter to his entire character, now that I'm thinking about it. But no, I really loved that book. I think it, and I know I'm going to get some hate for this, but it's like, I think it was the last book in that series that I absolutely loved. Not saying I didn't like any of the other books, but Azkaban has that special place for me within that septology.
See, I loved Prisoner of Azkaban. Oh, yeah, pretty much that much. But, like, I love Prisoner of Azkaban and Goblet of Fire. Like, I will go down fighting for those two. The others...
I'd fight you with Goblet of Fire, but I will say Goblet of Fire... Yeah, this is going to be even more controversial. Goblet of Fire was the last one I think I enjoyed.
Yeah.
That's not to say the series isn't good and that it doesn't, like, work for everyone. For me, I think 5 stressed me out. And, I mean, you could probably say there's bias because you know who. Not Voldemort, but you know. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert again. I'm going to give it 3 seconds. Sirius Black dies. And I remember being so excited to have book 5. I waited in line at the midnight release. I won the trivia because I was obsessed. I was that obsessed Potter nerd. Slytherin, by the way, that's what I am. But I remember reading that, and then I had to go back and read it because at first I was like, wait, what just happened? He got killed by a curtain.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, no, he's totally coming back because the mythology behind Sirius the Dog Star was eventually at the summer solstice, he comes back through the veil. And so I was so sure Sirius was coming back. And she crushed me.
Yeah.
That's not bad writing, by the way. That's actually the mark of good writing. You made me love a character so much that I had a visceral reaction to his demise.
I remember my friends and I, like, we were such Harry Potter, like, I think one of my best friends used to call it, we were all high on Harry Potter, because if you gave us 5 seconds between classes, we would be talking about Harry Potter. We had the merchandise, we had the wands, we had every friggin' thing. You know,
my classroom is decorated like Harry Potter right now.
Right? Like, it had really cool merchandising, and I really love the aesthetics.
Yes.
But I think I wound up loving the aesthetics more than I love the books anymore. But
I think there's a richness in the world that didn't get explored that I think is beautiful. So it's like, to your point, it's like there are things about Harry Potter that I still absolutely adore. There are things about Harry Potter that I don't adore. I think that's valid, though. Like, we're not a bashing channel. Like, we're not going to sit here and bash Harry Potter or J.K. Rowling or anything, but, like, just, like, an honest review. Like, on the surface, yeah, I feel like some of the magic did kind of go out around book 6 and 7.
Yeah, I very much remember, like, my friends and I all we did the releases for the midnight releases and stuff, like, for books 5 and 6 and book 7. Mm-hmm. I remember, like, walking in Monday morning or whatever morning it was, like 2 days later when we'd all been able to read the books, and just looking at one of my friends, and she's just like, the epilogue.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no, and like, I get it, because I was so in love with this. I snuck out of band camp to go buy book 6.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's the devoted fan I was. And I never did anything wrong in high school. Like, I was a buy the book, I'm going to follow the rules, this is who I snuck out of band camp, which is the nerdiest sort of rebellion I think anyone has ever uttered. Like, but I snuck out to go to the bookstore for a midnight release of Harry Potter, and I read it that night. Like, I did not go to sleep. It was one of those things, again, where I just read it all in one go, and the next day I was just so, like, deflated.
Yeah.
I was mysteriously too sick to go to class that day. But, no, and I'm not saying, like, that makes it a bad book. And I tell this to my kids all the time. First of all, you have to read a book to be able to have an opinion on it. So whether or not you like it, you have to read it before you can give me any opinion. Otherwise, it's not valid. It's not a valid opinion. And there are many things about books 6 and 7 that I do like. But the fact that, like, I was disappointed doesn't mean it's a bad book. It just means, like, it just wasn't for me. Right? So, like,
I just know that, like, if you, still to this day, I have certain friends that you can look over at even like in a party when we've all been drinking and just go, so about the epilogue.
okay.
And you can just watch Tiara start screaming. Like, it's like, she's been too quiet for too long. Let's go sidle up to her and be like, so about the epilogue. And just watch the fireworks begin.
No, in fairness, for any of, like, the hardcore Harry Potter fans that may accidentally stumble on this and you're just completely heated. I mean, the things that I think bother me and you, J.K. Rowling has come back out and said they bothered her too. So, I mean, I feel like we've kind of been justified. Because I know you and I were both very much shipping Harry and Hermione.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's childish to be like...
For me, it was really Hermione and anyone but Ron. Like, Hermione and the Weasley twins, I'm good with. Hermione and...
Both of them? I'm kidding.
Yeah, why not?
No, and I felt that too. I felt that the Ron pairing was forced, just from a characterization level. It wasn't... It didn't feel organic. But, you know, sometimes that happens in life.
Yeah.
And I will say this, like, as much as I did not enjoy them as much as the first half of the series, that's not to say I don't feel like she owed me a different ending. Like, I don't feel that about authors. Like, again, some books are...
what she wanted to tell. Like,
yeah,
what
it's like, some books are not for everyone. And that doesn't mean that the story is not a good story.
We are getting off on a tangent. We need to get this wrapped.
You get this wrapped.
I am about to wrap this.
All right. Shameless plug time. Woot, woot, woot.
Our book is the MC romance that we have talked about in various points throughout this episode. It's called Broken Wings, the first in the Stormcrow MC series. Only $4.99. Link is in the description. What do you think we should talk about next time? You know, we are open to suggestions, guys. This is a baby podcast. This is our first time doing this. We don't know what we're doing. But
I mean, and I'm sure that came through. We don't know what we're doing, so be kind. But also, I'm really curious, like, in addition to what you think we should talk about next episode, what are your top favorite bonus points for why?
Yeah. Maybe you can convince us to read them and we can review them on here. That would be an interesting episode.
That would be fun. Like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter. We love interacting with other writers, other readers. Our handles are somewhere on screen. Not sure where. Not yet.
You can find us at the aforementioned Twitter handles, and you can also hear us again in about 2 weeks. We are aiming to, and hopefully as this goes on, we will get better and more professional at this. We sort of hope. Promise.
Mostly.
Pinky swear with fingers crossed, but yes. All right, have a good night, everyone, or good day, whatever time you're listening to this.
Yeah. Bye-bye.